All right. Well, first of all, we're excited to introduce and kick off our first Expo Labs. These are designed to be an interactive lunch hour learning experience where we take topics from the Career Transformation Expo, take them beyond just the keynote into actual practical application. And oftentimes they'll be led by our Expo presenters and subject matter experts. But these sessions are provided to do deeper dives, to do live demonstrations, to have hands-on examples, and just these opportunities for more Q&A. And this was specifically from the feedback that we got from the expos. People love, love, love what they're learning at the expos, but they just want to know how to do more. And so the idea is that the Expo Labs provides that teach us the how part of it. So thank you so much for being here with us on our first one. And our first SME is Ray Hunter, who has been in tech so long that he remembers when AI meant ask intern. With more than 20 years of engineering leadership, he's worked everywhere from startups to massive enterprise systems, building apps, leading teams, and probably fixing the Wi-Fi once or twice. Ray presented a fantastic session at our last Career Transformation Expo titled AI as a Force Multiplier. And so today he takes us beyond just the conversation into using open code to build AI agents. And with that, we'll kick it on over to Ray.
Yep, thank you. We should have some drum roll music or something going on.
And I was like, we could emoji clap for you. Yay, who's Ray? I don't know.
I don't know if that's quite the same, but hey, we'll take it. Thank you, everyone. Hey, based on, again, like Trevor was saying, based on the feedback, I wanted to jump in and kind of share some slides, present some slides, and then I actually want to jump in and actually show you a little bit of how it works, how you can coordinate this within your own kind of engineering. You don't necessarily have to be an engineer. I think this is more than getting into just, having a tool and using that tool like a desktop application that allows you to chat, or through a web browser where you're just chatting with an AI. This is more along the lines of AI coding agents. We call it agentic AI, or agentic agents too, as well as is some of the terminology. But it allows you to allow AI agents to do more of the work that you would then do. This really takes you out of, for example, in developers, a lot of us might have IDEs that we're chatting with and we're still doing the work. This actually allows the agent to do most of the work, where you're doing more of observation and orchestration, where you are orchestrating the agents to do things on your behalf. So that's kind of where we're getting into. Open code, I'll just give you a little history. Open code is a native terminal application that you can use. I did share in Slack some two terminal agents that are two terminal CLI programs that you can use with AI coding agents. And then I shared an actual terminal that works really good with these. It's one that I use. It's not the only one. There are others out there. You're more than welcome to test. My personal favorite, I've tested quite a few of them. I use Ghosty. There's probably 5 or 6 other ones I can name off that are out there that you can jump into. I want to say Ghosty is, you can use it across all platforms. So Mac, Linux, and Windows, depending on what you're on. You can install that, run it, and go from there. Ghosty is one that I've tried a lot of the other ones. It's just one that I've found works really well with me. The one thing I did not put in the slides, and I'll go through, I did not actually put the shell for the terminal. I didn't add the shell. So some people have their favorite shell. If you're really into shells and you really understand shells, usually it's a lot of us older individuals that have been around the block and been developing for a long time. We probably have our shell of choice. I know I do. You can use these with the shells that you're in. just be aware that there might be some configuration that you have to do with your AI agents to understand the shell that you're in. Most agents are built, sorry, let me step back. Most models are built from Linux. They're trained on a lot of Linux stuff, not everything, but most of it is Linux based. And most of the shells that are on Linux are bash shells. So just know that most of the models that you use kind of have this flavor of Linux tools and the Linux shell. So the Linux bash shell. So just kind of understand that as you're jumping into this, you may have to make some changes, adjustments, things like that. Where that becomes very, where you need to be concerned about that is when you use these tools and you want it to actually run these commands for you in the terminal. What will happen is they will actually fail, and you do get charged for those. So that's the thing that you have to be aware of as you use these, that failures, you still get charged for it. So if you're using an API or if you're using a subscription, just know that failures, you're still going to run into, that's going to hit and you're going to be charged for those. So keep that in mind. There are things that you can do. I think that's beyond this conversation, but in Slack, in the AI channel, if you have questions on those are some things that I've worked through on my own to help mitigate some of those issues. Let me jump in. Kind of agenda today, what I really want to focus on is just open code. The great tool, it's open source. It's available for you guys. No cost to use open code itself. It's getting developed quite a bit all the time. So you have that available to you. There are other ones out there that you're more than welcome to explore. Klein's one. There's most of the big companies or organizations create their own. For example, Codex is one from OpenAI. You have Claude Code from Anthropic. Open Code is built third party. It's a whole different company that's doing it, and they allow you to use different model providers. Next, after that, just kind of touch on getting set up. And then number 3, just working in open code, what you can do, what you can't do with agents. Just kind of touch on that. And then lastly, just kind of how to configure and extend open code to handle your way of doing things. So how you like to develop, what is your style, things like that, how you can make it your own. Okay, let's jump in. So again, I just want to touch a little bit on open code in general. What are some of the benefits? It's open source. You can actually go and look at the source. You can contribute. You can do all that. It does support OpenAI. I will remove Anthropic. Let me go back. Anthropic, sorry, one sec. There we go. Anthropic is not 100% supported when you're using a subscription. They got in a legal battle and they actually had to remove it. You can circumvent that through some extensions with open code. The extensions are just done by other third-party, other people, other developers will do them. You can install them. Just know that it kind of goes outside of their user agreement. They want you to use Claude Code all the time for Anthropic, but just know that out of the box, it's not supported like OpenAI, Google, and local ones, and a bunch of other. Like I have in here, there's 75 plus other providers you can use, and providers are providers of models. So a lot of those models are going to be API based, so API billing. So just remember that there's 2 camps, more of the subscription based, which a lot of people hear about, hey, I pay $20 a month for OpenAI, I have access to it, based on this plan. That's a subscription. You have a limit that you reach. Usually that's so much usage in 5 hours, and then they kind of cut you off. API, it's more you're charged for everything going, and then coming back you get charged for. And that's based on whatever they have set up for that particular model. I don't want to go too much into detail on that. We can do another presentation where you get hardcore into how to optimize, how to handle billing, how to make sure you're getting the most out of what you're doing. This is terminal native. They call them TUIs. And then it also has support for a plan and a build modes. There's also other types of modes that you can use too as well. It does have multi-session support, and it's LSP aware. LSP is language support. So it'll handle, for example, I know we have some developers on here, probably do multiple languages. So, your big flavors, your Java, Kotlin, you can get into C#, you can get into, anything .NET based, you can get into all your front end. It has the language support in there. So what that does is it allows you to leverage the language support tools already built inside of OpenCode. So OpenCode will use that to check and verify that the models, when they actually provide information based off or code, when they actually generate code, if the LSP is set up properly, it will go through and make sure that it's following the correct, like, for example, syntax, making sure you're using like the most up-to-date version of the code. So if there's like a feature in this version that you're using, it'll use that. It doesn't fall back to whatever data it was trained on, which might be 2 years old. So those are really great features that I've really enjoyed with OpenCode. And I'll show you where you can actually see that up here. Composable. There's slash commands. That's where you have inside of kind of the interface, there's slash commands you can run. You can have custom subagents. A lot of people really love the ability to create subagents where an agent calls additional agents, and the parent agent will work through that and talk to the subagent on your behalf. Pros and cons to using that, but understanding that's one of the great features that OpenCode provides. I think most of us probably have heard of MCP servers. I personally don't use those as much. Let me go back one sec. I don't use MCP servers that much. I tend to use Skills a little bit more. We'll jump into some of those. MCP in my opinion, tend to use more of your tokens, your allotment of tokens, more than I want. So I actually remove most of my MCP servers, and I'll build something else that takes the place of an MCP server. Usually that will be a skill, and that skill will have something set up for it. So let's see, let's jump on. Let's talk about kind of the setup. I went in the slides and I added some of the setup information so that you have it. As I mentioned previously at the beginning, Ghosty is one of the tools. There are some other ones, some other terminals that you can use. For some reason I was thinking OpenCode was on Windows, but I guess you have to run it under WSL. For a better experience, but there are probably other terminals on Windows that will allow you to run OpenCode inside of them. And OpenCode's website has some additional information for it. But the one thing I really like about Ghosty is it does do some GPU acceleration. It handles a lot of the UI for you. In my opinion, just a great terminal. As I mentioned, you're more than welcome to test out some other ones and see. I know there are some other AI kind of influenced, or they do a lot of things where they leverage AI inside the actual terminal. Those ones I don't use personally. You're more than welcome to check those out. I know a lot of developers that have jumped on some of those terminals that really hook into AI automatically. That's just one that I personally don't want to use. So, but check those out and see. Okay, so installation, I did put some of the commands in here. Obviously, you can go out to the website, pull the information and look at it. Check it out. Very, very easy to install. You can do it quick from the from Ghosty or from whatever shell you have. You can use Homebrew. You can use that on Mac or Linux too. I know Linux supports Homebrew to a degree. I personally use NPM to install these. You get a lot of the updates quicker and faster through NPM over, say, like Homebrew. So my recommendation would be use NPM so you get all the updates and you can keep it up to date. Okay, let me move over. This I'm showing kind of a quick example. ChatGPT, if you have an OpenAI subscription, OpenAI has the version Plus. I think that's the $20 one. I think Pro might be the $100 one. That's the Codex subscription. Really easy. You just fire it up, OpenCode auth login. You can select the providers, and then from the provider, it will go through the process. A lot of times the subscription are web-based, so it's going to open up a browser and then report back to OpenCode. Very quick, very easy to go through and do. And then from there, you can actually start to pick the models. So run the auth, log in, pick the provider that you want, and then very, very easy to do. Let me, I wanted to show, so let me jump over to the present. Let me jump over and stop presenting this. Give me 1 second. I'm going to jump over to my actual Ghosty. Here we go, and show you. Actually, I don't. Let me go back to the other window. I want to do a different window. Stop sharing. This is the tricky part. Let me see. Okay, let me share this. This is actually, I'm actually in Pi. I don't need Pi right now. So OpenCode, and then you can do models. I was going to show you just the models that I have set up. This will go out and look at all my providers. I wanted to show you some options that you have. We don't have time to go through all of them, but we can have discussions in Slack. I wanted to give you some options that you can use in your personal. Now, I want to make sure I point this out. This is not, I'm not using this for client projects or any organization that I'm working for. This is set up for myself. So these are all ones that I use personally, and based on like my personal ones that I purchase, and that these are my subscriptions. When I use how I segregate, if you will, the two, I actually use OpenCode for some of my personal stuff, and then I'll use pi.dev, which is another terminal one. I use that more for client work. So if I have a client, they have subscription, I use it in Pi. Technically, you can actually, as I show here, I have multiple subscriptions. These subscriptions, you can bounce back and forth between the subscriptions and use it. So you could use it with clients as well. You just need to be aware of the subscription you have. The one thing I will point out with OpenCode is that you can only have one subscription to a provider. and you just need to make sure that that subscription to that provider is the correct one. So an example would be if I have an Anthropic or if I have an OpenAI subscription that's personally mine, and if I have a client that gives me one, then I need to make sure I'm using the right one. Especially when your client has an enterprise version. The enterprise version subscriptions usually have more security built into them. A lot of them are like SOC 2 compliant. So that's the security, and what they do on the security side is a little bit more than the personal accounts. So just bear that in mind, that if you have subscriptions from a client, make sure you're leveraging those for client work, and you're not in Ghostbusters, we call that crossing the streams. Remember, don't cross the streams. So here I do have OpenCode. This is a good one. I've had a couple people ask me about some cheap models in terms of cost. They want to dip their feet in, dip their toes in, and they want to understand. OpenCode has their own models, and you can pay a subscription, which is like $10 a month. It's very limited. Those are actually, they have Chinese models that they run locally in the United States. So you can use some of those and have access to those. And they also have another, so that's called the Go subscription. They have one called Zen that you can use, and Zen will open it up to all the other ones. So all the Frontier models you can use too as well. So you'll notice here that, for example, all of these ones are Zen models. So OpenCode, this is the provider first and then the model after. And then I have OpenCode Go. This is the one I was telling you is like $10. Zen is API pricing. So they charge you, it's not a subscription. It's charged just like Amazon. What you use is what you get charged for. I do have a GitHub Copilot one. That's one that I have. I do have a Google Gem or a Google one. And then I have another one, which is Ollama. So a lot of you might know Ollama as running local. Ollama actually has cloud ones that you can buy. And those ones are really, really good. Those are the open source and Chinese ones. They run those in the United States too as well. So those are good ones if you want to cut your teeth and get exposure to some of these and not run anything locally. You can use the cloud one, and it has a lot of great tools in there to use. Again, you're not getting the Frontier models, you're getting some of the open source and some of the Chinese models. And then here I have OpenAI. So those are all the providers that I have. And with the providers, you can actually see all the models. Now, one thing to point out with these models is that sometimes it might list a model. That's what OpenCode has kind of configured on the back end. Your account may or may not have access to that model. So just be aware if it shows up in the list that you may or may not have access to that model. One example that I can think of off the top of my head where I run into problems is with GitHub Copilot. Sometimes I'll get like a model, for example, I might have this Gemini 3.1 Pro. Sometimes they'll, if you have a GitHub Copilot enterprise account, the enterprise account, they can actually go in and turn on the enterprise account models off and on. So if you were to go and look at GitHub Copilot and see, there are some times where all the models supported, there might be a bigger list. And then the enterprise might come in and go, hey, we don't want this one, or this one. One example I know of is that I think with some of these, there's like, you might have like a Grok, you might have GitHub Copilot, I think has their own specific model. So not a Frontier-based model, but they have their own. I can't remember. I think it's called Raptor. And then, so sometimes you'll get that one turned off and it will appear, and if you try to use it, you'll get an error message. It won't allow you to use it. So just be aware of that as you use open code. But this is a quick way to see the models and see what they're doing. Let me jump over to this is kind of open code and what it looks like from the standpoint as you're looking at it, as you're using it. Let me jump out of this and let me do a new one and show you when you first start it up. This is exactly what it looks like. You can actually go in and tweak the UI. Let's see, is it? Oh, sorry. I gotta change. Give me 1 second. I apologize. I switched tabs. Let me jump over to the window. Here we go. Okay. Here's when you first load it up. Here's what it looks like. Currently I'm in the build. Let me annotate. Let me go back and annotate so we can discuss. Let me see. Picture. Fine. I'm gonna call back here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I'll annotate a little bit of this so you can see. It kind of gives you the directory that you're working on, and it's very directory based. I do have an MCP server set up. There is, now that I think about it, I do have one set up, and it's actually coding. It's a coding specific one that allows me to, or allows the model to reach out and look at very specific commands based on the version that I'm working on. So the model will look at the kind of the project I'm in, the code, and the version of the software that I'm building for, and then it will use an MCP server to ask questions when it generates code. So similar to an LSP server, there are specific MCP servers that you can use too that do that as well. So I do have one configured. The big thing I wanted to point out is when you come in this interface, this is the model, or sorry, this is the primary agent that I'm using, which is a build agent. This is the model that I'm currently using. And here is the reasoning that I'm currently using too as well. And I can actually change these models, and I can change and loop through the reasoning. And I can do that on the fly, or I can actually configure it when I come into it. When I come into open code, I can configure all that. So those are some of the things that you have full control of. And let me look and see if the pop-up will allow me. Let's see. Do you? Oh yeah, you guys see that. So here is, I can go in and I can select the models. As I mentioned, there's, it goes through the list. It keeps track of my recent ones that I've used. Recent is across all your sessions. So any session that you have, it'll open these up. That's why you see like Ollama Cloud and some of these other ones. It'll tell you if the model's free. You can use those. And then it will break it up, and here's like my GitHub Copilot, here's my Google, and then Ollama Cloud. It actually allows you to move through those. And then here's my Open Code Go that I can move through those ones. And sometimes it will give you information like for this particular model, it has 3 times the usage. So if I use it, it's 3 times as much as the other ones. And the reason being is this is like a brand new model that was released this week or last week. I can't remember. So just FYI. And then you can favorite some of your models so that appears at the top. If you want to move through this, the high, there are some key commands where you'll see it change. I'm on low, medium, high. Great way to do it. You can do the key commands, or you can do this Control P, and Control P will allow you to come into the system and do any settings that you want. So you can make changes to the theme, you can make changes to what you view, tooltips, everything you have access to. switch the session or the models. So it will also, if you want, these are slash commands. You can switch the session, create a new one, and then you have other commands that will appear here as well. So session, OpenCode will keep track of the sessions that you have in your project. And then you can go through and say, well, I had this session, I want to now jump over to this session. You can do that too as well. Okay, let me jump back to the slides. Give me 1 second. Let's see, PowerPoint. Okay, so that's more or less how I didn't actually walk through the process, but like I said, it's very easy to walk through the process. You can select your provider and go through it and add your provider, and then you'll have access to your models and you can start going from there. Let's see. Okay. Next thing you want to do is just point it to your repo. So if you have a project checked out or anything that you have checked out, just run OpenCode, run the command /init, and it will write an agents file. OpenCode uses the agents file. It basically will set it up for your project, an agents file that you can go and look at. Has key information that's for the context, like all your structure, conventions that it finds, how to build, how to test it. It will analyze and look at your entire project and set that up. It's a great tool. After that, you can go in and tweak your agents file to whatever you want it to do at that point. And you can keep that agents file updated based on the work that you're doing. So usually I will go through and keep that up to date, probably weekly. I'll just run through. I don't usually run the init. I'll just run like a prompt and just say, hey, go through everything, update the agent file, remove anything that needs to be removed, add anything that's missing, revise anything that needs to be revised. Very quick and easy to do. Some people commit it, some people don't. I'm a little bit of the opinion that in the project, I don't like to commit it. I like to keep it updated. And so I'll keep it updated myself. Some projects, I guess, depending on the projects that you're working on, if there's multiple developers, just come up with a standard of how you want to keep it updated. The reason being is because when OpenCode loads, it reads the agent file. And if it has stuff in there that maybe you don't like, that's going to be something that, you know, you're going to get out of the project. And that's where I like to make sure that personally, I want to have my own because I want to do very specific things than most developers. So that's one reason why I don't like to include it, but some projects do like to include it. Okay, now I kind of gave you a little bit of working in OpenCode, but I want to go into some details about some of the things that you can do and kind of give you an example. Some of these I'll give you an example. I know in terms of time, I don't have time to go into everything. I'll touch on ask, plan and build. I'll show you quickly how planning and building work. Undo and redo, I probably won't have time, but basically that just undoes changes and then allows you to redo anything that you tried. Where an example might be, hey, I want you to make this change or fix this issue, and it does it, and then you look at it and you're like, that's not what I wanted. You can undo it, revert it, and then you can redo it and apply it again and see if it works the second time or third time. Usually after the second or third time, I would probably reassess the logic that you're using and see based on that how you want to approach it. Maybe what you're telling it is not it's not getting it, it's not understanding. So you may have to go and change up how you're prompting it to work. Switch models, I showed you a couple ways how to switch the model. Those are really easy. Switching the model and understanding models, that's a little outside the scope of this, but there are models that are really good for planning. There are models that are really good for building. There are models that are really good for kind of running the tools. So understanding what models to use when, that really helps, and you can really move through and switch those models up. One of the benefits in the last, or kind of, I'll touch a little bit on it, but when you go into configuring, you can actually configure your project specifically with models that you want to use for that project. You can do overall, these are the models I use with OpenCode. And then you can go in and specifically in your project say, in this project, I want to use just these models. And I can show some examples of those. Let me go back and show, apologize, switching the windows, it's getting painful a little bit. Let's see. So let me jump back over into OpenCode. Okay, let me show you. So as I mentioned, there are tab down here allows you to change the agent. So if I hit tab, you'll notice it moved to plan. Planning is a way where you can plan and say, here's what I want to do. Here's my goal. In Claude Code, they have a slash command called goal. You can create something like that, but plan is kind of the same thing. Plan is an agent, and I can change this. I can change the model. And let's say I want to use, for example, I want to go, let's just say I want to use Ollama, and I want to use Minimax. I can change it. And then now this agent, this plan agent, will use that model. If I hit tab, notice I have a different model. I can change that to whatever ones I want to use, and then it will use that specific model for that prompt. You can actually, in the same conversation, you can change the model and bounce between the models and get different results, or you can have it assess and evaluate things within the context window. Here's an example of, let's see here. Let me show you. Let's see. Variants we talked about. I showed you how to switch variants. Switching agents. Here are the two agents that are default. If I have other agents configured, I can come in here and change those other agents. These are primary agents. There are sub agents too as well that you have access to. For example, general. This is a sub agent, and I can ask it and say, you know, for example, I can say, tell me, like, I can say, summarize this project, and it will use an agent and do that. And let me show you what that will look like. It'll fire up the agent and run it. It's a general is a general agent. It's a general task, and then it will go ahead and run that. You'll see right here where it has Control X down. These are sub agents. So if I actually run that, this is the actual sub agent that's running, and you'll notice at the very bottom, it's general, and the general is running a GPT 5.4 mini. And so he's going through and using that particular model as he's going and doing his work. To get out of this, what I can do is I can hit my up arrow, and that means I'm going to go to the parent. Let's see, let me go back. There we go. So now I'm back at the parent. And when he's done, he'll report back to the parent. As it's going and processing, I wanted to show over on the right-hand side, the project summary request. As you're using this, depending on the subscription, you'll notice here that now the context window has, the context has started to change, where now I'm getting, you know, here's my tokens, here's my usage percent based off of my subscription that I'm using for this particular context. And then if there's a pricing, it will actually give me the pricing. Since I'm using a subscription, it knows it doesn't give me a pricing. But if I use an API that has pricing with it, it will give me a dollar amount that, you know, as I work through a session, it will provide that information. The MCP server, this is the Context 7 one that I was telling you about. Very popular. It's a pretty famous one that allows you to get more coding specific. LSPs, I do have some LSPs set up, and you'll see in here that it uses C# YAML LS for some of these other ones, and it gives me a directory that it will use those particular ones under. So it's actually pretty smart and convenient. And then down at the very bottom on the right hand side, it just gives you kind of the directory that I'm working in and kind of where I'm at on the file system. You can use this. I'm not showing it, but most of us have a lot of experience with Git. You can use it with Git work trees, and it will show you the work tree that you're into as well. And you can have multiple sessions across work trees. I don't recommend. You can do multiple things in a session and fix multiple things. Just be aware, obviously, if you have two different models running at the same time, it's, you know, you can wreak havoc on the code. What you can do is you can specify the primary agent. So for example, here, I can spin up a primary agent, and I can spin up sub-agents that will do specific things at the same time. That's something that is a little beyond this, but I can tell the model to go and say, hey, spin up X amount of agents, and it will go off and run those. I do that quite a bit, where if I'm exploring the code, if I'm looking for specific things, it will go out and it will use sub-agents to go and do all the work. And then you'll notice here that this sub-agent actually shared with the parent agent, and the parent agent summarized the data. All this data right here is summarized from the child. So the child went out using the general sub-agent. It went out, did all the work, and then it came back and provided it to the parent. So these are some of the things you can do with open code. So think of it like, you know, these are your workers. These are, you know, some people are like, they're my employees, they're my, you know, they're my agents. They can go and do all this work. Absolutely. Open code allows you to do that and have full control over it. You can run as many as you want. Just realize that any agent that speaks to your LLM, it's gonna use whatever subscription you have. So if you have 10 agents running at a time, just know that you're gonna have 10 different you know, agents working, and that's going to go against whatever limits you have. If it's a API limit, a dollar amount, you're going to run into those too as well. So just be super aware. Also with some of these tools, with open code, it will use some of these sub-agents that it has built in, and it will use those automatically. So just make sure that you have those configured. And again, we probably don't have enough time to go into it, but you can configure the built-in sub-agents to use very specific models that are cheaper and they don't cost as much. Some of them you can probably even get for free. Especially there's a sub-agent called Explore that just does file IO to find files to then analyze and look at. That agent gets used quite a bit by, you know, by a plan or a build. That agent I usually will set up to use like a model that's like a mini or a nano that's really lightweight and extremely fast, because all it's going to do is run specific command line tools like find, grep, FD, rip grep, any of those tools it's going to look for and run it there. Okay, so that gives some information there. Let me jump back into the slides, and then we'll wrap up, and then I'll let you guys ask some questions. Okay, so that kind of, I touched on ask. That's where I did the @general. And then you can also and then give it a file name if you want. Plan and build, I showed you how to toggle between those. Switch models, I showed how to do that. Kind of configure, built-in, there's a bunch of slash commands. I shared some of those. One of the beauties that I really like is that there's this share. So if I'm working or collaborating with someone, I can share what I'm doing, and that allows another teammate or another individual to actually jump in and look at the session that I'm currently in. So it allows me to share that session. That's really good if you're troubleshooting or doing things. Just know that that uses OpenCode's infrastructure. So if you have a client, you definitely don't want to use this with client or proprietary data. I would, side always on, like, don't do it unless you have permission. But it's really good, like if you're using, if you're doing your own thing and you want to collaborate with someone and it's your own stuff and you're okay with it, that's something to use to share that session with them. So these are slash commands. You can build your own slash commands, very easy. You can go in, it's just markdown files. Hey, I want to have a slash command like undo or redo, and then you'll give it markdown and you'll just tell it what you want that command to do. I use it a lot for testing, generation of unit tests, generation of functional tests, like all that. Those are all slash commands. So I have, I don't have to type it all out. I just hit the slash command. Generating any type of like get commands or get information, I do it all in slash commands. And then you can create those. You can share them, with coworkers. If you're using OpenCode, we share a lot of those markdown files. And then you can just copy them to the project or to high level where you want that. This is the place where you would copy them. Globally, this is all Mac. If you want to look at Linux, Windows, more or less, this is this is where you're going to put this these markdown files in this configuration. It's just a JSON file where you can go in and you can specify and have your custom stuff for OpenCode that's for you. And then you can do it at a global level, and then you can do it per project. And the per project will take precedence over the global. So as I was mentioning models, for example, in the JSON example, there is a model specified. That's like the default model. You can specify a default model and then in the project override the default model. You can set up anything that you want, any variants, any themes, key bindings. Permissions are a big thing that you'll have to worry about. I use permissions heavily. I do everything where it's all restricted, and most of mine is restricted to any kind of destructive like type scenarios where I don't let it delete anything. It's always ask before you do anything, ask me. Sometimes that gets tedious where you're constantly getting asked things, but I just found that sometimes it deletes stuff that you don't want deleted. And, when it does that a couple times, that gets frustrating. So just be aware you have the capability of setting up permissions and define the permissions for you, what works best for you. Let's see here. Let me go to the next one. Subagents, I talked a little bit about that. You can create subagents to your heart's content. You can create subagents to pretty much do anything that you can think of. A lot of people use agents for, like code reviews. Agents are very specific to what type of work you want completed, not so much what you want them. Like, for example, if you have a specific action that you want done, I would do that as a command. An agent would be, think of it like, in terms of developer, maybe a team member, like, hey, this is my QA agent. It's going to QA my code. It's going to run all my unit tests. It's going to run this. It's going to do these things and then report back. That's a good example of an agent. Whereas a command might be like, hey, I want you to commit my code, and I want you to generate the message, and I want you to, sign the message and do this. That might be more of a command. I want you to generate, when I ask this or run this command, I want you to do this very specific thing and do only that and don't do anything else. That's where you get the slash commands. The agents, you can go and, again, they're more broad. They have a lot of capabilities. Your agents can call other agents, and you want to go in and have that agent do like a type of work or do something for you. So agents or sub-agents are fantastic. I've seen people have, like myself, I think I have 6 or 7 agents. I've seen people build to the extreme, like 1,500 different agents. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that might be a little too much. You probably wouldn't remember all the agents, but that's a great, there's really good use cases for those. Check those out. And again, determine what works best for you and your work ethic and what you're trying to accomplish. You'll definitely get value out of having some agents help you in your day-to-day work. Let's see. So the first thing I just kind of put in here, if you want to try it out, day one, get it all configured, get it all set up. I know that some people have complained about subscriptions, maybe some of the pricing and stuff like that. Hopefully I can give some options in terms of cost. Open Code Go allows you to spend $10 a month. That's cheaper than lunch maybe. You get access. You can get 5 hours really, really well. If you use the really cheap agents, you can get 8 hours worth of work. Again, the quality that you're getting back from the agents, they're not Frontier. And then you can go up to spending, $100, $200 a month, and that gives you a ton of access. Again, find out what works for you, and then definitely get you a subscription that allows you to test out locally for you, for yourself, how to get this going. And then if your organization, if the client that you're working for has some options, definitely, use those and see if you can use those with Open Code too as well. Some of them might be their solutions might be a little bit more proprietary. I've seen companies use, like, for example, Azure as a provider where I couldn't use Open Code. I had to use a specific tool to be able to use that Azure as a provider. That's just one example of where a provider may not fit into the Open Code ecosystem. You may have to use it a different way. For that, I put in, or we have in the channel pi.dev. Pi.dev is, I'll just put a plug in for pi.dev. It's super great. It's actually more lightweight than this. It's very, very limited in what it does, but it has extreme extensibility where you go in and you create what you need to work for you. So, for example, if you want to, as I mentioned, Azure, we had Azure as a provider. We just went into PyDev, and we had PyDev build the connector to the Azure provider for us, and that's what we used. So PyDev is really, really good for, it will actually create its own extensible objects, code, whatever it is, it will build that for you so that you can get whatever you need from it. So again, it doesn't come with all these bells and whistles. You can go and grab them, what people share, or you can just build whatever you want from it. And that one, I'm slowly moving from open code to PyDev for that capability. It's actually really, really nice. So if you want to cut your teeth on open code, that out of the box, it has a ton of solutions. If you don't want, if you want extensibility, PyDev is the way to go for you. Let's see. And lastly, that, we'll jump into, take some questions. I know we have a few minutes. I'll stay as long as everyone needs. I know it's lunchtime. Any questions from anyone? People are just so enthralled with lunch, maybe they forgot to have questions.
I'm sorry, this I joined a little bit late, so I'm hesitant to ask questions because maybe you've already answered them. But
No, jump in.
You mentioning the ChatGPT Plus account.
Yep.
Is that something that's I thought we were using Gemini. Sorry, I was a bit late, so I don't know if that's what we're moving to.
No. For STG, that is correct. For us as an organization, we use Gemini. Gemini, we don't have. We only have the Gemini like web-based chat one. We don't have a subscription one that we can use.
Okay, no worries. That's fine.
Yeah.
Check. Great.
So if you,
because I have like a personal cloud subscription, etc. So I could use this type of stuff for that. It's just
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know if or when we'll get Google Gemini doesn't do. They do now. They have a subscription now, but it's not it's not an enterprise level subscription like the other Frontier models have done. They're only doing the personal accounts. So we don't technically as an organization have the capability to provide subscription based on the enterprise account yet. So it's all API driven. And so we don't have the API set up for that.
Yeah, no worries. That's great. Yeah. Great presentation though.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Well, there are no more questions, Ray. Thanks so much.
Yep.
As a reminder, for any of our presenters for the Expo or Expo Labs, we give them 10 career transformation rewards points, which for the stateside consultants employees is worth $50. And so that puts Ray at 121 points, which means he's really close to the 150 to get his first tier t-shirt, Got Skills t-shirt. And that'll put him just 14 points away from 30, which gets him $150 on a paycheck. So thanks, Ray. Appreciate you doing that. It's awesome. And appreciate everyone joining. Just as a reminder, we do have that Slack channel that Ray was talking about, the AI Slack channel. So if you have questions or run into roadblocks, it's been fun to see the conversations on there. And I know everyone's willing to help in any capacity when it comes to that. So appreciate you guys being here and supporting. Oh, what does he say here? Aaron? Yeah, it seems like he's got quite a few, huh? Going through that list. Heck yeah, that's why Ray works so hard to pay for his AI subscription. So what do you do?
Yeah, you don't want to know how much I'm paying. It's a lot per month. Let's put it that way.
Could have a third house, Ray, if you were doing all that.
I could have a third house. I think with the ones that I'm using, I'm probably about 220, 225, I think is what I pay per month for all the ones. I probably will go and move those. I do have some stuff that I'm using with. Most people probably heard of OpenClaw. I use ZeroClaw, which is a Rust-based one. I have that currently working on some laptops that I've recommissioned. Let them run and do some local stuff. I have found that brings up a good question. A lot of people have asked me about local models. I will say it's probably cheaper and easier to use a subscription and to find a subscription than it is to deal with local and deal with all the local stuff. If you have the cash or capital, which I don't, to go and buy 4 Mac minis, with like 512 gig of RAM, then it's just you're not going to get the performance to work really, unless you go super, super lightweight and do Chinese. And you probably don't want to, most people don't want to do that. And, like I said, to manage all that, it's like, that's a lot of work. Just, you miss a couple lunches, you don't get fizz. So my fizz has gone down and my AI usage has gone up. Let's just put it that way.
That's probably for the best. Then your health is probably improved too. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again. Thanks again, everybody, for carving out some time to be here, and appreciate y'all. Yeah. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. See you, everyone.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah.